Now it's the moment of the second panel about the future of the cities and the new planning and development needs in the light a new form of mobility. I call with me the moderator, Michele Giannuzzi, project manager of the DTI. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. This is Michele Giannuzzi. I'm working for the Distretto Tecnologico Aerospaziale. I'm project manager for different several projects, in particular for one project, which is Assured UAM, which is H2020 project working on the city perspective for the urban air mobility. Today, the panel we will discuss about city, about what is the role of the cities, mostly European cities, in what is the deployment of the urban air mobility. We will have different 5 panelists in particular. We will have speaking from the Ingolstadt city. We will have speakers from the Porto city, from the GZM metropolitan, which is a Polish metropolitan city. We will have speaking from the Norrköping from Sweden. With me, there will be Bastien Valtier from the Ingolstadt city, which is going to speak on behalf of the Ingolstadt speaking. Then we will have Sandra Melo from the city of Porto. Then we will have Adriana Witowska from GZM Metropolitan. We will have Hans Silberg from the Norrköping. And then we will have Miguel Angel Anya from the Zaragoza city. Why we need to speak about the role of cities? Because, of course, we can speak about technologies, we can speak about infrastructures, we can speak about norms and regulation, but we need always to take into account citizens. And citizens means cities. Me, as representative of the DTA in this case, I could speak for the, let me say, for the body city, because in Assured UAM, we as a DTA, we are going to bring the importance, we are going to bring these words of body in this case. These events that you see here, that you are participating, is in a body project, which is the Body Open Innovation Hub, which is a national project. It was funded by the Minister of the Development Economics. And as was told, as was introduced by the Vice Major of Body, Professor Di Sciascio, and how it will be spoken by Professor Michele Ruta tomorrow, you will understand what does it mean Body Open Innovation Hub for us. It will be the project in which you are going to experiment new form of mobility, 5G technologies, new infrastructure, new way of getting in together. And in all this, there will be also the way of experimental urban air mobility, which is our charge of the Distretto Tecnologico Aerospaziale. I said to you before that cities and citizens are important is because we need to understand how citizens are going to accept, how citizens are going to react to flying objects over their head. And so it's something that we need to take into account. It's not so obvious, never, mostly in the time of today's, in which knowing how the citizens and people are going to react is important. But we need to understand them, and we need to, in this case, speak about acceptance, acceptability, and also sustainability of urban air mobility. This panel will be needed to understand or to get in deep in these topics. And so, just to let you introduce you much more, this panel will be divided in 2 main, let's say, time, that we will have, as before with Mr. Kurana, we will have a speech, a keynote, let's say about 5 minutes, of how the cities that you see here represented are going to interact with urban air mobility, and then we will have a second time in which we will have a question and answers, important question and answers, which are going to raise up from the keynote speech of each of us. In particular, so we are going to introduce, I would like to understand how, for instance, Miguel Angel Ania, which is a senior technical advisor of the city of Zaragoza, with planning how to implement, to deploy the urban air mobility in Zaragoza, I would like to understand how Zaragoza is working in urban air mobility deployment. So, Miguel Angel, thank you to be here, and let us know.
Grazie mille Michele, buongiorno a tutti. Well, in Zaragoza we have been working during the past 3 years in different projects, and in which we have been trying to assure that the use of drones is safe and secure, and so a lot of tests must be done, and in order to obtain the public acceptance of the use of drones. So we have been creating a big area of 17 hectares of land able to use a completely restricted space for the test of drones. And in this area, they are now running companies and different research departments are running tests, even using drones for transportation of people, and they are making these trials today. And also, as a city, we are part of a European project that is called Flying Forward 2020, in which we are participating as a living lab and creating several use cases. And for these applications, we have been creating a unit of drones inside the fire department of the city, and we are working in different missions with the use of drones, so that people can understand that the drones are working for them, saving lives, and they are starting being used to see drones flying over the heads. Also, during the last Fiestas del Pilar, that is the main festival we have in our city, we prepared a show of 200 drones making figures on the space by night. It was a big success with more than 55,000 attendants that even collapsed the center of the town and the communication system. It was amazing, but that means that we have a lot of interest on this on the urban air mobility in our town, in our citizens. In addition, we are starting working with with another European project involving the CSAR type of projects, creating and defining a US space for the city, creating corridors for the transportation of goods from the logistics areas we have surrounding the city, and going up to certain points in the center of the city. So these are more or less the things we are doing, and we think that the urban air mobility is going to be an essential part of the mobility of the future, and we need to start right now, but step by step, because we cannot fail. If there is any problem, urban mobility will be in serious danger.
You're right, you're right. We need, we should fail because failing is part of engineering process. Of course, the topic is still so difficult, let's say, that we need to take into account a lot of things. And so failing is a process of engineering, but we need to understand how much we can do better things, how much we can test it before going into the real thing. So testing will be something important, and we're going to listen about testing hereafter. The second panelist I would like to invite to introduce what they are doing in the city is Sandra Melo, which is a colleague of mine in the Assured UIM project. Is going to speak on behalf of Porto, and she is analyst research, is the direct researcher of the analyst department of the CIA, which is the Transportation Research Center of the Portugal. And so I would like to understand, Sandra, how Porto is going.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. So, as Michael said, I'm from SEIA, and we are the knowledge partner of the municipality of Porto on IC2. So they delegate this role today on us. So Porto has been quite active, and it has been positioning the municipality as a front runner for urban air mobility. Although urban air mobility sounds still a bit a quite complex topic for cities, because cities still don't know exactly what they are expected to do and how they are expected to react to this possibility. Porto has positioned itself as a front runner. So Porto wants to see how things are going and wants to take a leading role on this process. So under that position and under that strategy, Porto has supported, so the municipality of Porto has supported the demos that are being run in Porto, and most of them are promoted by SEIA. So we just ran a flight demo at the hospital, so the central hospital, where we will build together the first heliport for drones, and for other options on urban air mobility. But by now, the so-called bikes for urban air mobility, like the colleague said, so we are open to all kind of options in that sense. And so we tested this flight demo with the antidote for the poison of snake that is an issue in Portugal. Only the main hospitals have this kind of medicine, so that was one of the cases. We also tested moving a portable defibrillator to a ship, so we also crossed the waters. We were trying to understand more the process and the challenges regarding the flight, the public acceptance, rather than to test the technology, because we know that our drone would perform successfully the demo flight, of course. We also have established a bridge with the universities, so we are running surveys on public acceptance. We are trying to understand how can we place the citizens on this topic, and actually the results have been quite positive regarding the public acceptance. And we also have run simulation studies. So we are trying to simulate with the dynamics of real vehicles. How could we use drones, for instance, for cargo logistics in Porto, to try to understand what is the potential of the market, what are the restrictions, if the restrictions are from the ground mobility infrastructure, or if they are actually regarding the aerial network conditions. So we say are always together with the municipality to get more knowledge and more actions, more demos to decrease this uncertainty regarding urban air mobility. We are also both partners of the Assured UIM project, where we also have a dedicated area to study these cities challenge. Regarding the potential where in the short term the municipality of Porto can find a place for urban air mobility, it's more related with monitoring activities, for instance, like monitoring building maintenance, monitoring traffic, conditioned access zones, because Porto has an historic area that is.
We got some.
I think that this is our position from Porto. So we want to lead the process. We want to be one of the first ones to try it, although we still feel some uncertainty regarding all this process.
Good, thank you, Sandra. Surely I would like to take some your notes, for instance, the way did you want to be front runner, support to be front runner for European, from the Portugal point of view, but also from the European point of view. Also making comparison, for instance, with the Zaragoza point of view. Also Porto is having some operations, so demo operation, they flow for hospital demos and whatever. Zaragoza may instead operational or ConOps for fire department, surement and whatever. So also the way of bridging university and municipality and citizenry was such important. So in this case, you with Porto City, you see something different from Zaragoza, but you see are complementary, and this complementarity will be the same for Norrköping. So I would like to introduce Anne Silbeck, which is responsible strategic project for the IBG, which is a company, is an infrastructure company, which is in charge for aviation and advanced air mobility. So I would like to understand much better for me and for the public here, how Norrköping is implementing things for urban air mobility.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Italy, and hello, Bari. This is Norrköping calling. Greetings from Sweden. There's a lot of things happening here up in Sweden, in Norrköping, and Norrköping is in the middle of one of the aviation clusters in Sweden. So therefore, working with advanced air mobility is just a normal thing, I would say. We just recently finished a big day, a big event. We were part of the Chorus XUM event in Europe. We had the Swedish work package together with our ANSP and the University of Linköping, which is our neighboring city. And that went well in a lot of ways. And we are also in the midst of ramping up a newly won contract from the EU Commission. We are establishing a European Digital Innovation Hub that we call Aero. And we are going to work with drones also connected to space. We had the last panelists talking about space and their connection to the drones. We will help public entities as well on their digital journey, understanding how to use digital twins when doing simulations and stuff like that, and also SMEs from the industry that have great business ideas that need some support. Anyway, we are also working on developing test arenas around the city where SMEs can do tests, and we are in a lot of different projects with telco companies as well as Saab, which is Sweden's fighter manufacturer aircrafts. Anyway, I was asked to give a little story about milestones reached in our city, and I would like to share a story about safety procedures that happened during this intercity flight in the Chorus XUM demo a month ago. And even though IBG are experts on airspace, who together with our ANSP were responsible for the risk assessment and the SORA process, which we thought was state of the art, it sure took some time to just get approval for the Chorus XUM intercity flight. And that tells us that approval processes. And the milestone, or the main takeaway, was the fact that the drone in the intercity flight had to perform a controlled emergency landing due to communication failure. And there were a lot of people at the event. Some people were disappointed, but most of the professionals attending the event understood that way that the major takeaway from this demo was the demonstration of the safety procedures and the use of tools that helped control the emergency landing, avoiding all the risks involved. And this is important because we're talking about public acceptance. And if these systems if they don't work, because flying a drone from A to B is not particularly hard, but safety procedures, systems that works, and that we can show that is very, very important to the public acceptance. So that's a wrap.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Hans. As you see from the Hans perspective, from the Norrköping perspective, we are introducing another topic, which is the security procedure, the risk assessment, which, as you can understand, is one of the important things in the urban air mobility deployment. So risk assessment, before we spoke about CONOPS for hospital, for medical, CONOPS for fire department, for fire freighting. We spoke about infrastructure. So you see all this complementarity. Cities are working each by each, but in different positions. Each of the city, of course, focus on what for them is much more important in that time, and the time where we are living and time they are studying, they are working. But as you see, all them are a puzzling which make us focus on the deployment of the urban air mobility. Now, I would like to pass to another of my a colleague of mine on the Assured WM project, which is Adriana Witkowskaja. From a different point of view, because Adriana is going to talk about not the cities in particular, we can talk about Katowice, but he's speaking about a metropolitan area. And so this is also another point of view, and we would like to understand how a metropolitan area is behaving, is focusing on urban air mobility. So Adriana, thank you to be here. It was. Okay, waiting for Adriana. Adriana is in the airport, in the Munich airport, and is... Okay, he's here. Adriana, you get back. So, hi, Adriana.
Terribly sorry for that. It is always like that. The online connection when you are supposed to be speaking just fails. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adriana Witkowska-Konieczny, representing Metropolis GZM, Górnośląsko-Zagłębiowska Metropolia. This is our name. We are located in the southern part of Poland, and our, I would say, unique status made us interested in developing R&D projects for cities which are associated with us. We have 41 cities and communes in GZM, and they are the cities of different sizes and shapes. We are built in the region of high congestion in post-industrial regions, so these challenges are also visible here. We have also a lot of remote areas, so being a pilot area for all those solutions seemed quite natural. But what was most natural for us is to act on behalf of our cities in terms of developing urban air mobility, to acknowledge them to that idea, to make them interested in it, and also aware of the opportunities, obligations, and also acknowledge them that the drones will come anyway if they are in the process or not. And cooperation with 41 mayors of our GZM region, that made us a bit more focused on educating local officials. We are not as involved as our partners in Assured UIM, meaning Bari and Port of Russia and DTA. We are not as engaged in pilotages, but I guess we have a quite good level of experience in educating public officials, because it became very clear to us during almost 3 years of implementing urban air mobility that everybody who is trying to develop urban air mobility thinks of public acceptance, about that drones should be accepted by the citizens or citizens friendly. But we missed a bit this small gap between citizens and cities. There are a huge group of influencers of urban air mobility who, in our opinion, should be noticed, and these people are just public local officials. So how we started proceeding, first of all, dealing with our 41 cities and communes, we tried to gather all the areas that may be influenced or infected by drones operations, urban air mobility operations in the cities. When we engaged our main city of Katowice in that process, we tried to evolve and created the workshops with more than 20 cities engaged in that, just to implement one use case, to gather all these stakeholders around one use case, important at the stage of their interest and the needs identified as a common need of the local authorities. So they worked for a few weeks with the support of Polish government. This project was held, and the outcome of that was one use case dealing with the environmental monitoring. This was quite cautious, not very fancy, dealing that Seja and Porto are doing things like snakes bite antidote, which I personally really admire. But our stakeholders 2 years ago were ready for environmental protection, environmental monitoring. So after that project, we went to the step 3, and we created a larger project called Prototyping School, Drone Prototyping School, where our public officials, local officials were educated in terms of urban air mobility, meaning all the spheres, legal aspects, GDPR. They even were taught how to operate drones, just to know how the process goes on, all the safety procedures, and what may be required when these kind of services are going to be implemented in our local area. And it brought us to the stage where we are at the moment. At the moment, our officials just come to us and bring more and more use cases they are ready to implement. Of course, we are not staying apart from the European trends. Also, the medical transport, medical use cases are the most accepted and needed. And at the moment, we are in the process of preparation, the pilotage with our R&D industry and legal, let's say, partners, legal authority partners, where we try to show some compromise between very important and very important and in need of rapid action. Basic monitoring, which may be held in the same process on this route from the hospital to the laboratory. We are expecting to finalize this pilotage in the end of this year, so we are undergoing this process. Few last words, how we perceive the ecosystem cooperation. As I said, for 3 years, we acknowledge that as a municipality, we can't do it on our own. We are not the only stakeholders who can handle urban air mobility. So we try, and now there are visible results of that. We try to cooperate with our legal authorities, like Civil Aviation Authority or our Polish ANSP. We also cooperate with the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Gdynia Harbor in terms of developing the use cases in the critical infrastructure areas. At the local level, of course, we cooperate with our local authorities of 41 cities and communes, and also with the industry, which is quite well developed in drone industry, quite developed in Poland. What is also important, as the let's say owner of 41 cities and communes, we have access to over 2 million of inhabitants. So the processes of public acceptance or just asking for an opinion and the further use cases development, we have a quite nice group. That all brought us to the international level, where we are partners, proud partners of Assure QAM, where with DT and SEA, with Bari and Porto, we are developing what is possible for cities to implement in the area of urban air mobility. We are also providing our input to the recommendations that project is working on. We are also a partner of another 2 projects, which are only a bit connected with drones, but highly connected with mobility. That all bring us to the concept that urban air mobility is part of SUMP. So that's how we perceive that aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana. From Adriana, what I point out, for instance, from these Adriana's speaking speech is the education of city authorities, which is something I would like to understand better after in the second round. Last but not least, we will have Bastien Berthier from speaking on behalf of the city of Ingolstadt. Bastien is working into the city, the incubator, and most important, working in vertical on the urban air mobility incubator strategies of BRIC. And so, Bastien, how is going in Ingolstadt?
Do I have to unmute this? Okay. So, thank you for the introduction. So basically, I think you can approach this question from two different perspectives. The first one would be the ecosystem perspective that has already been mentioned. And in Ingolstadt, we are really trying to build up an ecosystem that consists of like official bodies, industry, academia, and also startups. And we think that startups play a very important role in this new field of air mobility because like urban air mobility is really disrupting the way we think about air traffic, right? And in the end, all the time when we are thinking about like disruptive technologies, startups always play a very important role to some extent. So we thought about how we can support startups in creating their products, how to facilitate their development processes and so on. And we experienced that testing infrastructure is something that most of the startups lack, and that is also super expensive for them to build up, and also they are sometimes or most of the times lacking expertise in how certification processes in airspace work. And that's why we came up with our startup incubator, Brick Air, which offers testing possibilities in a militarily controlled airspace at the Ingolstadt-Manching airport site. I will go into details later on, I guess, but this is really part of our strategy to build up an ecosystem. Another aspect would be that we are also partnering up with industry and academia leaders. For a couple of months before, we, as Brick Air, but also as the city of Ingolstadt, partnered with the Airbus-led Air Mobility Initiative as regional partners that bring the aspects of the regional economy, the regional and urban traffic into this industry-led consortium. And then we can think of this question as how do we promote the implementation of urban air mobility project-wise. So in the city of Ingolstadt, we have, for example, a project called Free Rail, which is funded by the Federal Ministry of Transportation and Digital Infrastructure. And with this project, we are developing a automated and drone-based system for evaluating the status of rail beds. I don't know how other countries deal with rail bed evaluation, but in Germany it's an awfully manual process where people like walk along the rail tracks and see if everything is still the way it should be. And there we found a startup called Quantum Systems that involves in this project, and I think it is quite clear how drones can facilitate processes like that, and there is such a clear benefit that also explains to the citizens why drone technology can be really beneficial for us as a city. Another project that I will not go into detail because I think many of cities have projects with medical use case is our project Made in Time, where we have a transportation solution between our local hospitals and a central logistic hub where the medication is stored. This is especially interesting for medication that is rarely used but likely to expire. So it doesn't have to be kept in each hospital individually, but can be stored centrally. Those would be the projects I would say that are looking at smaller scale drones. As a city, Ingolstadt is obviously also interested in ground infrastructure. So there are also 2 projects dealing with ground infrastructure. The first one would be in City Takeoff, which is also funded by the Federal Ministry of Transportation. And this project uses it develops more or less an AI-based method to look for optimal vertiport locations in the city, and it takes different kind of parameters from building regulations, weather, also connectedness to public transportation into account, and then searches for well-suited vertiport locations. And our latest project that the city is involved in is the project Flying into Air, where we are ultimately developing a digital twin of a vertiport and alongside the whole travel chain. So we are using a user-centered design approach to model or to create the whole travel experience from the user perspective, and end up in a hopefully well-suited vertiport mock-up as a digital twin.
Thank you. So from the Ingolstadt, we listen to, for instance, this case, vertiport, location, optimization of the location of the vertiport. So an infrastructure that must be placed into the city. So it's something that cities, authorities needs to take into account for the future, for the planning, for what is the urban planning point of view. But we also understood how important is having a startup environment, a startup ecosystem, young people working on it, also young people trying to get into the urban air mobility world. And the other topic that I would like to understand much better after is the testing certification, what you saw before. So after this, this is the last of the first, let's say, roundtable. And so we point out some interesting things. We make understand that acceptability, public acceptance is important. It's important the way to make understand that drones is useful to make beneficial things for people, firefighting, hospital transportation, parcel delivery, in some case, but mostly medical transportation. You listen from a lot of our speakers that they are working for medical transportation. Also as a DTA, we work in the Chorus 6IM in a medical transportation demos. So the medical transportation would be one of the CONOPs much more acceptable for sure in the next year. But we also understand that simulation is important, digital twin are important. So public acceptance is something that we would like to understand much better in the next session. We also make some point about, for instance, the how work with stakeholders. When Adriana said, for instance, about educating stakeholders, educating local authorities. So speaking of how we make the ecosystem between, among all the stakeholders that we have. And then I would like to understand from each of them which are the challenges that they are seeing from their city perspective. So, for instance, speaking about the acceptability, I would like to, for instance, Sandra, how drones and urban air mobility is perceived in Porto, and which is the point of perspective from Portugal and from the Iberian Peninsula, for instance?
Well, as I said in the previous talk, we had just run a survey actually to understand better the public acceptance towards the use of drones, and the results are quite positive. However, and I feel that we also need to be to try to understand what is behind these positive results sometimes. The fact that they are so positive can also be a sign that they don't see it yet, okay? Because when we are asking in our surveys what is the attitude of people towards the use of drones, we are not saying it's one drone flying 100 on 1,000. And that influences, of course, the attitude of the citizens towards the use of drones. So the fact that it's positive might also, so positive, might also have this side that is, we are asking something, but the way this...
We lost Sandra.
When we ask about public good, and I found it really curious that the previous moderator made that question about how it is perceived when it's about saving lives. And on that, citizens are clearly allowing almost everything. They don't mind that drones fly over their homes to save the neighbors. Of course, they see it in a different way if the neighbor is just receiving a package or food. So, of course, the attitude is different, but the perception is positive, particularly when there is this perception of public good. So the drone is bringing something, is bringing an added value to the person's life. The other thing is that this public acceptance issue, although it's positive, they still don't value or they still don't accept the public investment on these infrastructures, probably because we are now facing a quite complicated period, of course, with pandemia, with the war, etc. So that is not a priority for citizens' political agenda, let's say it like this. So the acceptance is positive in a general way, but I think all the results must be observed in detail and cautious analyze, not to get too enthusiastic about results and jumping immediately into to wrong assumptions. But in general, it's positive.
Good. It's important they don't see it. So I like this sentence. Of course, it will change something where you are going to see a lot of flying objects over your head. So it's important the state of Sandra. And also, I would like to understand, Adriana, what is instead your seeing from the public acceptance point of view, from a perspective of large area than a city, so a metropolitan area?
Thank you, Michele. First of all, I'd like to agree with Sandra. So perceiving drones by citizens is really related to the use case. And I guess it also brought us to the idea to develop urban air mobility on specific use case and introduce all the legal aspects and these corridors needed for missions through the important use case, acceptable and really vital, for example, for people's health or even life. Dealing with the acceptance in a region like GZM, I guess that citizens are more keen to develop the services for remote areas than in congested city centers, as we have quite well developed the traditional transport modes system. So there is no visible need for the private use at the moment, of course, for a private use of drones for transporting cargo. But naturally, as the congested area is well covered with the medical infrastructure, we saw in cooperation with our local hospitals the need for drone transport between hospitals or between laboratories, especially in terms of the need of rapid, for example, biopsy checkup. So I would say not in the city centers, of course, also because of the safety requirements, which are quite harsh for flying in the city centers, and the more readiness for remote areas. And of course, medical transport, yes, transporting coffee or pizza, not necessarily at the moment.
It's true. It's
Thank
fine.
you.
It's fine. It's fine. I will just paraphrasing. Feynman once said there is plenty of room in something else, which was in that case nanotechnology. I would say there is plenty of working in remote area to do, because we still work in a lot of urban city center, but let's think about us that we can connect places, points, and so remote, what we can call small range, regional urban mobility. So this is a point that usually I like to speak, I like to study better and to implement in my daily work. So remote area is important for me. I think it should be something that we need also to take into account. So thank you, Adriana. Also the fact that the corridor that must be accepted is a thing that is important, and we are going to understand better after. So trying to closing the public acceptance questioning, Hans, from the no-scoping point of view, what you can tell us?
Well, one thing that we have been looking a little bit closer into is the sustainability advantages for using drones. We are not just the fact that we will have fossil-free vehicles in the future, but we are also looking into a fossil-free infrastructure. And to be concrete, it's about the development of new materials, circular materials to use for vertiport manufacturing. So we think that to drive the public's acceptance, we think that a fossil-free infrastructure overall will be important because the cost of building roads and railways are very high in relation to airspace or developing airspace infrastructure. And the environmental depth we are creating when cutting through the landscape will take forever to amortize. The cost will be too high. We also need to address the people's dependence on personal vehicles, cars especially, if you don't live close to the city center itself, which contributes to emissions. This can be addressed with better delivery service. So therefore, I think it's about time to start comparing relative alternatives of modes of transportation from an environmentally sustainable point of view.
Good.
So environmental consequence analysis to show the benefits.
So environment also is a topic that is kind to came back times. And this is for the public acceptance point of view. So, but during the first table, we also discussed about the stakeholder, how the stakeholder can speak, can face each other, also addressing things. And so I would like to understand, for instance, from the Ingolstadt point of view and Zaragoza point of view, how they work, how they manage the addressing with the local authorities. And for instance, I would like to, Zaragoza, for instance, Miguel, how to?
Well, from the public acceptance, one of very probably the most important issue right now is the probability of misuse, of maluse of the drone itself in the city. So as we have seen on TV, the use of drones on the war is very easy, and you can use one drone to drop one bomb very easily, and then our police departments are very fear of this type of uses in cities. We have in Western countries, we have the menace of a lot of different kinds of terrorism, and then we need to be prepared for this. So our police department is looking for means to push down one drone that is suspect of being maluse, of being a threat, and also the aerospace has been closed a lot of times if there is an opportunity of having higher risk of this. So for the urban air mobility, if we want to reduce the risk of any misuse of the drones, we need to establish one very clear procedures, and probably it will only be able to run automatically under the control of a higher authority. So we need to react very quickly in case of a threat, and this is one of the main issues that we have found during our development. It's not only a technical question, but it's one of the most important risks that we are facing up to now. And for instance, in Spain, you cannot use one drone for urban mobility if the police authorities is not granted it with 10 days in advance, so that it is completely impossible use one drone for deliveries, because you need to be delivering some goods in a quick or fast delivery. If not, it's not useful the use of a drone for this. So in my opinion, this is one of the most important issues that we are facing up to now, and it's necessary to find technological solutions to avoid these risks, and this will be coming from the military development. We are working also with a military air base that is located in Zaragoza, and it's one of the most important issues that we are facing.
Fine, thank you. So misusing. Remember, the misusing of drones is something that can fail the public acceptability. No? And Bastian, for you, which are the, let's say, the way to work with stakeholders in the public acceptability?
Yeah, I think it's, in the end, it all comes down that you have to have a lot of empathy, as simple as it may sound, but I think Sandra made a really good point when she said we are now currently in a lot of crisis. We have the pandemic, we have the war, and a lot of people are questioning, why do we even care about urban air mobility and drones and stuff like that right now? But if I would ask someone from the Department of Economic Development, for example, he would tell me, or he or she would tell me, that this is a very fast-growing field, and as we are in moving to a recession right now, we should actually be be investing in these kind of technologies as they are promising growth. And so I think, so what I'm trying to point out is, in the end, it comes down to have all the different parties at eye level talking to each other and understanding the fears and also the opportunities that they see. And obviously someone who is a city planner will only be interested in travel aspects, and someone who has a property might fear that drone traffic over his house might just reduce the value of the house. And all these points are really important, but they cannot be sorted out without talking to each other.
Sure.
And I think that is something that a city in particular can do very well, because, as I said, in the city there is the department for urban development, there is the department that brings the traffic perspective, there's the department for economic development that brings the business perspective, there is a direct link to the citizens which brings the public acceptance. And I think it's a tough challenge for cities to harmonize all of these different opinions, but they can act like as a neutral instance there, because they already have most of the opinions combined in their institution.
Sure. Empathy is something I never thought about. That. Empathy for human mobility is like the human urban air mobility influencer. So these two words particular, two main topics more. And we are going to finish. And since we are running out, I would like to ask just one word from you. I would like to know which is for you the challenge that we need to face for the next year, the next short time. So Bastian, for you, just one word. Which is the challenge?
For me, it's testing and certification, even though that's two words.
So making better, making it more simpler.
Making it more simple and ultimately making it fly.
Okay, fine. Hans, for you, a word. Which is your challenge from your point of view? We need to face it.
Well, lack of political leadership. They need to improve their collaboration with private bodies and their understanding of the technology's potential. One thing, regulatory challenges can probably be met by identifying policy pathways and planning procedures for city planning to develop a multimodal infrastructure.
Fine.
We also have technological and system challenges, the need of understanding of how to improve operational efficiency in logistics systems also as well.
Fine. Miguel, your challenge from your point, one word. Short.
Yes, is the guarantee of the safe and security for the citizens.
Great.
So if not, we will have a lot of problems.
Great. Sandra, you are just closing with you. Which is your challenge? What do you see?
Okay, dress code. As someone said, dress code. And when we are invited to a party, we choose the dress code adapted to the place where we go. Urban air mobility has to respect the dress code established by the city. That is the big issue here. So I'm not sure if the challenge is for the city. I do believe the challenge is probably for the ones who want to attend the party and have to respect the rules of the host. So that will be dress code.
Dress code, fantastic. Dress code. Adriana, which is your challenge? Just one word.
Now I would say internet connection.
You're gonna close it to the table. So which is your challenge?
Yeah, I understand. But my main challenge today is internet connection. That's what I wanted to say. But I would say cooperation, because as I said before, this process needs all the stakeholders from the technological part, R&D, citizens, and the municipal officials. So cooperation is the highest challenge to see each other and also to provide this process to the path we want to go.
Good, good, fine. So different recipes, as you see, different ingredients, one good meal. I just want to close the panel. I need to make two greetings. One is for Bartosz Dwyczek, which was supposed to be here at my place, but he was taken by healthy things, and so I'm just taking his place. And then the second is a say hi to my colleague of mine, which is Silvano Capuzzo, which is for COVID at home, and most of these things is also from him. So thank you to all.
Thank you.